So we're gonna transition to, like, the next big thing, I guess, is like, why don't we collect video games, quote unquote, anymore?
Got it. So that was a conversation. That's a clickbait title right there. I like that. It's basically my thought process on this was, right, we collect video games. Of course we do, right?
Yeah.
But I think and I'd say maybe guys like Retro Rick, he's very much like us. I wish he lived down here. He'd do well in this spot. But most of us collect, and we've talked about we collect shirts and that, but our obsession and my hype, for a lot of the stuff that we collect really doesn't come from video games anymore. And obviously I still love it. I still collect them, but my excitement is for like things like paperwork and things like promotional items and a card or whatever. I don't know. Maybe I'll let Ricky kind of dive into that one a little bit, where our brains collectively kind of even together have like molded.
It's just molded. It's like it's not even games anymore. It's like nostalgia. You're chasing the nostalgia. Like when you find that the Coneheads thing, the display,
the sign.
It's like, dude, it has nothing to do with video games, but it's beautiful. You're just like, wow, remember Blockbuster when they used to have this kind of stuff?
Yeah.
I guess we got a little tired of just doing games all the time. It was more like, look at that, look at this, whoa. And I think a lot of the stuff, like, Chris was one of the first ones that I saw flex. When we first went to a store, I was like, oh, dude, this is some pretty good stuff. When he had all the shirts up on top, I was like,
I think that, and that is a real thing. I mean, when you're doing this stuff for so long, like anything, right? Like I can only hold so many Flintstones Surprise at Dinosaur Peak.
Yeah.
To where my interest is not peaked as a but so it's interesting that we went from these things hardcore dedicated every day. That's what I want this game, want this game. We've started going to conventions. I think conventions in some way killed my excitement for this stuff because I saw it all. I'm like, oh man, I see it all. So that's why when we go to the swamp meet and Curtis is like, look at this piece of paper I found that went in an old Nintendo book that I've never seen. I'm like, you can't find that anywhere. Go on eBay. It doesn't exist. And now before you know it, we're like our animation stuff, promo passes, guides.
And I still haven't even been to an expo, so I wouldn't even know what that feeling would be, right? So I never had the time. I always had college.
This guy runs an expo and he doesn't even invite you, bro.
Yeah, right?
You can come anytime.
On your own dime.
now
You go to buy tickets.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, now that I'm like kind of going into the space, I would love to, because like you guys are kind of introducing me into the community, and it's like a blessing. But also like, why do you think like cardboard and paper have just skyrocketed as of recent in the last couple of years?
I have plenty to say, but I talk too much. Anybody else?
You're talking about like the paper, like
I'm talking about like boxed
found.
games. I'm talking about like paper, like as in like mechanic paper from Nintendo from like 1985, 1990s.
I feel like everyone already has like games. So if everyone's collecting the same thing, it's like, all right, yeah, he has it, he has this. But when you get like the funky, like, oh, dude, I got it boxed now. Now everyone's like, oh no, I need it boxed. It's one of those like one of those things when you see someone have it, you're like, I need it.
Yeah, sad. but it's true.
It's so sad.
But what you're saying too with like paperwork and stuff like that too, I just think it was so. Yes, I do know that people were into that stuff back then, like, right, the weird, obscure items. And this stuff, it's almost like a weird conversation because you almost can't even really talk about it because we don't even know what that is, right? Because we're hunting and we don't realize that we want it. So to say you didn't really want it, but you're looking for that until you find it because we're always in that mindset now of like, we're looking for those things that when you find them, you're like, I didn't know that existed, right? And that's kind of the stuff that gets all of us now is like, again, if I see a rare game, I'm very, very likely to look at it, be like, I'll buy it, maybe not. But I'm like, cool. But when we find, like you said, didn't know I wanted a vintage Paramount light up sign that you can switch out items for that had an original Blockbuster box. But when I saw it, my brain's like, that's my excitement. I'm excited now.
I had no desire to get that for some reason. He goes,
too
you
young,
didn't
bro.
buy that?
He doesn't know what Coneheads is.
When he saw it, I was like, dang, that's
besides looking like a Conehead, he doesn't.
I look like the thumb from what is it called? I just look
Thumb
like
Wars?
I don't. Either way, I look a thumb. Yeah, like that's my actual visual of myself.
So do you think you guys are liking like the paper and the Paramount thing because it's more obscure things, like they're one-offs, like nobody else has this? Is that?
Yeah, and I think that when you've just hunted as much, I mean, again, and I will say this with humility, that I think we may be one of, or maybe the longest standing game hunting channel that does it not the longest, we weren't the first ones, but that has continued to do it week after week after week after week, episode. So that's not me gloating. That's saying with humility, I can say that we've been doing it that long that it's almost like I have to find those things that make me still go, oh, dude, sweet. You know what I mean? Because like I said, we've seen, obviously we haven't seen every game in existence, but it's like, I have to find those things at this point, and those are the things that like bring me joy, so to say, in the game hunting world. So when I see that stuff, like paperwork now, I don't know why paperwork. Oh, press kits. Ooh. That's been a big one for us lately. I think my goal too, like even doing what we do, is like to find this stuff, to what you said earlier about the thrill of the hunt. Find it, document it, put it on YouTube, because I almost feel like we hold maybe some sort of responsibility as, having a channel with a lot of people who watch. Thank you. Like some sort of responsibility, like, hey, this exists. So if someone ever searches it or it sparks their memory one day when they're older and they go, man, I forgot. Remember Nintendo press kits? I wonder if anyone's ever done a video. It's like it's there. It's documented as some sort. So yeah.
Yeah, my biggest thing is like when I get that type of stuff, it's almost like I want to save it, right? Because like, what if we don't document it, right? And then we just throw it away like everything else, and then it becomes a one-off somewhere else. Yeah. But like it'll be in somebody's game stash for years and never see the light of day.
Yeah, or speaking of that, I mean, you wanting to save it, so to say, I know, and then this is totally normal. Obviously, this is the 99% of the world. If you do find that thing, you probably don't have a YouTube channel. You probably don't have something to show it off, so to say. So you sell it, do your thing, which is totally fine. But what's great about the show is I feel like it gives us an outlet to be like, shoot, we found it. Let's show the world, and then whatever we do with it, whether we keep it or sell it or let your game room flood and let it get ruined. That was an option for me.
Or you can collect it and put it in your shed.
Yeah, I don't think that was a good idea, all the paperwork in my shed after my shed flooded.
So keeping on like the same topic, like who would have been like the biggest introduction for you to be collecting?
Ooh, baby, I like that. Go ahead, Chris.
I mean, I watched, and was it NES Pursuit?
Yeah, baby.
It was NES Pursuit back in the day. We used to play it on the TVs in the stores. So you guys were a part of that. I mean, yeah, early on, probably watching a lot of YouTubers collecting back then.
Okay.
Because like I said, when I first opened the stores, I did not have a huge collection. I still don't. People think like, oh, you have a huge collection because you own the stores. But like, I'm surrounded by this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
So what I find that I collect is like more just it's not necessarily more obscure. It's probably, it's a combination of obscure, valuable, but like, I mean, the stores are like a collection. But as far as other people that might have influenced me, yeah, it was probably those early YouTubers.
Nice. Yeah. Ricky,
Retro Hunters.
Retro Hunters.
It was funny because
Billy and Jay, but Retro Hunters is where, dude, I remember you introducing me to them. I was like, oh my gosh, we do this. And you're like, you know what? We should film it. I was like,
they were a good introduction into us wanting to do YouTube, because when we saw the Game Chasers, again, they only started like maybe a year and a half before, or something like that.
Yeah.
But they were a little more like production at that point. And I was like, well, I don't really know that stuff. So when I found the Retro Hunters, I was like, oh, they're just two guys, idiots, and they're having fun at swap meets. And I'm like, that's us. We're two idiots who go to swap meets. It's that's a whole different story for another day. But yeah, I think the Retro Hunters, along with Game Chasers, were a big inspiration to put it on the internet.
I would put it on like the night before we went to hype myself up.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Because that is a real thing.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch skate videos right before I'd go skate. Because I'd be like, all right, now I'm gonna go kickflip this big ledge. Like I'm gonna do it because I got hyped. And like us being the nerds now, we're like, dude, I'm gonna watch this guy find that game. Like, yeah, I'm gonna find a game. Like,
and I think the biggest homage that you always play into was the American Pickers. And like
I love
they were responsible for the Game Chasers too.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's kind of like what got me into it as well. But I didn't start collecting until about 4 years ago. So
did any of you guys collect in any sorts when you were younger? Anybody?
I was never able to. I was always moving. I think I moved about 25 times in my life. So
remember when I first started, I was doing like randomly like vintage cameras for some weird reason.
When you were like a little kid?
I would say that was the first thing you started collecting, but I don't think you were like a little kid.
I wasn't like a little kid. I was probably in like
instead of Hot Wheel Ricky, a little Kodak,
Because for me, it was comics. Like when I was a kid, comics. Which is why I collect a lot of comics now. But when I was a kid, I was a comic book collector.
I collected Pogs, actually.
Pogs, there you go. All right, so you did.
So we were. So I did, but we were super poor, and I'm talking like poor. So I used to hand make my Pogs. We'd get paper, and we'd try to fold them and then tape them together and like cut circles around them and use those because we couldn't afford them. So that was like our version of Pogs. And then I'd randomly like find an old magazine. And the only way I'd be able to get them is doing mail-ins. like doing a mail-in, like, hey, if you send this in, you'll get a free Pog. And I quite literally remember seeing like the mailman drop off like the old classic movies, like mailman pulls up and I'm like, get my Pog in there. And it's like a green slammer. And I just take it to school and be like,
That's awesome.
Those were the days, though.
dude,
Wasn't my days.
You didn't collect anything as a kid? Nothing?
I mean, honestly, I tried, but I mean, my mom would just sell it at garage sales. But every time we moved,
filthy
I'm
resale.
telling you, man,
Your mom.
man,
Well, your mom needs to come on the podcast.
yeah.
Your mom's a filthy
Dude,
reseller too.
man, my mom would sell things like by a quarter. Like all those videos that YouTube was like, oh, we scored on this one. I'm like, yeah, that's probably what mom you scored on right there, because she would sell a whole Nintendo set for like $5.
Oh yeah, well that was. I mean, I traded. What was it? I traded Little Samson for a Super Scope.
Wow, that's a good trade.
Yeah,
For the little Samson
for a
guy.
Little Samson.
Him and his brothers had a
And-
sweet collection, and
Yeah,
they
so-
traded most of it off.
Yeah, so being
Of video games.
Yes,
So,
so-
you were a collector. Yeah,
well,
video
so
games.
so
too.
being poor, we got this stuff always late, right? We didn't get Nintendo when it first came out, so we didn't have like the Mario Bros that it came with and stuff. So we had all the late releases: the Bubble Bobble 2, the DuckTales 2, the Panic
Oh,
Restaurant.
all the good
We
ones.
had all that stuff and
You
all
had
that.
Panic Restaurant?
We had
as a
Panic
kid?
Restaurant.
Oh my
we,
That
had
thing's
all,
super
we, had,
rare.
we had all the
Oh my
goodies, man.
gosh.
All the goodies. But again, that we were so poor that when we got that stuff, it was like, nobody cares, dude. I mean, we didn't care about it. I mean, we were, when I say poor, bro, I mean next level. I remember going to like the shoe stores, like Shoe Warehouse, but it wasn't like the nice ones like Shoe City or whatever. I don't even know what's nice anymore. Like a Shoe Warehouse and buying blank shoes for like $4. And my sister was super good at drawing, and I would have her physically draw Nike signs on my stuff.
Nice.
Because I was like, dude, I want
Hey, at
people
least
to.
she's an artist. You know what I mean?
I want people to think I have Nikes. I mean, we would. I mean, our food was from bread lines at churches.
That's where mine was from.
Yeah, Ricky too. Ricky grew up not even far from me, and we didn't even know.
We didn't even know. We couple blocks.
We had very similar. You had 2 drive-bys done on you. Tell them that for real.
Dude, where we grew up, it was insane. It was I just remember when I was little, my uncles were all like cholos, like so no matter what, like it was always bad in my neighborhood. But dude, I remember when I was a kid, I was like 5 or something like that, looking out the window because I heard a car pull up, and out of nowhere, dude, they pull up in the nicest like Impala, and you just see this guy with a shotgun.
Oh, it was a shotgun drive-by.
Trying to take out your uncles?
I was me and my uncle were the only one there, but no one was out there. They were just shooting at the house.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
my uncle grabs me, throws me in the closet, and jumps on top of me.
Oh, that's cool.
That's a good uncle.
I thought he was gonna say my uncle grabbed me and used me as a shield. I was like, oh no.
You can't get me.
You'll never take me alive. Dude, that's why. Yeah, right down the street in Santa Ana. I grew up maybe 5 minutes from you and didn't know. And I remember, dude, like Christmases, we'd go to Toys R Us, the same one you went to, and we'd go trash dig for Christmas presents. That's what we'd have to do.
Sounds like fun.
Well, and maybe that might even be some, psychological reason of why I collect or like to hunt and buy things or collect. But like, yeah, we'd go to the parking lot and jump the back, and we'd go, hey, and we'd do it with my aunt, my uncle, my brother, my dad, and we'd go look for Christmas presents. And that's how we had to do it back then. So I don't know. I don't know if that plays into like a psyche of it, but
Well, yeah, because the psyche, I think for me, and I was thinking about it, like just in collecting in general, like when I was a kid, really just comic books was what I collected. Had a fair amount of video games that we played and stuff, but I wouldn't say I collected the video games. We kind of played them and then gave them off or whatever. And,
Got it.
But comic books, I remember being a kid and they had the Wizard price guide. If you remember the Wizard, anybody know about comics, the Wizard? And I remember just sitting there like every month, I want to say that Wizard magazine would come out, and I'd have like Spawn #1, which was like worthless. It was like $5, and then it'd be like $5.25, and I was like, yes, 25 cents. And I would just watch the values of these things go up and down.
Wow.
And I think that played a lot into like why, as I got older and then I opened up the stores, I'm like, that's probably why I love this so much. Like as a little kid, just sitting there for hours on end looking at values of comics and stuff.
wow.
Yeah. Not that I own a comic book shop, but it plays into, what we do, kind of looking at the values of these collectibles going up and down. And I've always been fascinated by that.
How did you know early on that it'd be like a sustainable living to own a store, knowing that like nostalgia was kind of like a growing, like a small growing community?
Oh man, that was a big leap of faith at the time in my life. My wife was pregnant. Actually, no, she was pregnant when I first started finding games at the flea market. I lived in Vegas, and I was going up to North Las Vegas finding video games just on the side, selling them. And I was in commercial real estate at the time with a suit and tie and everything. And then I was selling online, like going to the flea markets and buying stuff, selling on Amazon and eBay for good, probably 2 years before I was like, I'm making more money doing this than I am with my salaried job. And I started putting together a business plan and there was a few other video game stores even back then. And then at one point I was like, I think I'm going to quit my job. And yeah, moved to Connecticut and just opened up a store, no job, no anything. And yeah, it was a kind of a leap of faith doing that.